Hi guys, welcome to Chapter 6, Theories of Learning. For this portion of our class, the next couple of chapters are going to be a little bit more big picture kind of things. We're going to talk about critical thinking and some different learning theories and learning preferences over the next couple of weeks. This video I'm going to do a little bit differently. I'm going to break it up into two shorter videos because we deal with just some heavier topics that more students tend to struggle with just because it's not stuff you hear day to day. So it'll be two videos you'll see Blackboard. So I'm going to start off with this first video will be defining thinking and thought. We're going to talk about learning objectives and how they help you, and then we're going to talk about Bloom's taxonomy, and then you'll see another video for the model of strategic learning because I like to really dig into that. So metacognition, these are the really scientific terms. Cognition of cognitive phenomena or thinking about thinking. I also like to say being the boss of your brain. I call this in my lesson, I normally call this how to be Batman. If you're not, for those of you that aren't so much into comic book characters, one thing about Batman is that he does not have superpowers compared to some of the other characters, right? He doesn't have super strength, he doesn't fly, turn invisible, any of that. Some will argue his wealth is his superpower, but that's neither here nor there. He doesn't have anything that just makes him easily conquer his villains. So he has to really spend a lot of time building out his weapons and his different cars and things because each villain that he comes across has different strengths, and many of them do have superpowers, and he has to compensate for that. And that's important because he has to know his own abilities. He has to know how strong he is, how fast he is, how capable he is of handling this different technology. And then he also needs to know this about his villains. What are their weaknesses? How can he use that? And so that's really what you're doing as a student. You're understanding two pieces. You're understanding yourself, your own self-awareness. What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? What tools do you have to help with the strengths, and what tools do you have to kind of overcome those weaknesses or at least work with them? Some ways you can strengthen weaknesses into strengths, and sometimes you've got to learn to work with it. And then you also need to know what's being asked of you. What is the assignment? What does the subject need from you that you can, is there a lot of writing? Is writing your strength? And if not, what can you do to help with that? Is it seeing a learning lab tutor and helping with your writing, giving yourself more time to write? You have to understand that about what's being asked for you. You cannot apply the same strategies of thinking and analyzing and doing your work that you use in a science course that you use in your English course, right? A lot of times those two courses are asking very different things of you. You have to know that about the course and the assignment, and you also have to know yourself. All right, so the stages of the learning process, there are four. The unconscious incompetence is the not knowing what you don't know. This can be a really dangerous place to be in if you're speaking on something as an expert and you know nothing and you don't know you know nothing. Hopefully that's not the case. Unconscious incompetence is we just don't know that we don't know this thing. So when we first started walking, every single one of you, when you learned to walk, fell on your butt. That is a fact for all of us. That is how the process works. So as babies, we don't know anything how to walk. Like we just don't know. We don't know it. We just see other people do it. Then we move into conscious competence. So this is when you see babies start pulling themselves up on things, realizing that they can stand, realizing what their legs are. So not that the baby is capable so much of the critical thought, but the idea is that you start realizing if you start putting one foot forward, something starts to happen, but you're not really quite sure yet how all that goes. So you still have this conscious incompetence. You know you don't know how to walk on some level, but you don't know why yet. Then you move into conscious competence, and this is where you would see babies start pulling themselves along and making those steps. So you sort of get the idea, step, but you still have to think about it. You still have to think, put a step, put a foot down, put the next foot down, and so on. And then you move into unconscious competence. How many of you, when you walk around, think about your steps? We don't. We don't think about going, we don't see a flight of stairs and think, I'm going to put 1 foot up and then 1 foot up 2 inches and 1 foot 2 up inches. We just walk because we don't have to think about it, right? This is unconscious competence, and you see it with so many things that we learn. Think about when you first learned to talk. If you've ever learned another language, this is very much where you can kind of feel this presence. Right now, if you don't know the language at all, you just know you don't know it. Then you start moving into maybe some words, but you really don't have a grasp, and then you have to manually translate. And then eventually, especially if you were like, say, in a country that speaks another language, you get to the point where you're what we call fluent, right? Where you can speak it without having to stop so much to process it. That's what the stages of learning are. And we apply this to everything, but we always kind of start in this very linear kind of way till we figure out what we don't know. And that's the important piece for me to kind of get to you. Any project, any assignment, anything that you're kind of tackling, think about what you don't know. Make sure that you know that if you have some incompetence that you need to build that skill. All right, so Bloom's taxonomy. All these videos, by the way, are in your textbook. So don't freak out if you obviously can't click on them through my recording, but they're all in the textbook for you. So this is another theory of learning and how it starts. It starts with a triangle that we start here and move up. This involves a lot of critical thinking as the higher up we go. So the first step is, of course, remembering. We can't learn something we can't remember, right? So that's usually the first step. Whenever you learn a math problem, think about you learn the very, very basics. Like we start with learning the formula, and usually we get a little bit of practice in just learning it, so we know when to apply a certain formula. Then we start to understanding. That's when they start bringing in word problems and understanding and applying, which is where it always got me. But you start getting the sense of when to apply that formula, what situations call for that formula, and then you can start analyzing and evaluating. And this is where you see, as you get higher through these math steps, more complex problems, because you can apply the formula and figure out where it makes sense and how to apply it and even question it. And then you can start creating, which is where maybe you start creating not new formulas, but new problems using that formula, and you start seeing this formula in different ways. And I've even had math students that start seeing formulas outside of their math course. They can start applying it to different things, and you start just using it naturally, and you're creating it in new environments. So this is an excellent example of why you see in math courses they have a lot of practices, and a lot of the practices feel really repetitive, like you're doing it over and over. And this is why they're trying to push you through these levels. And most of your courses, if you're doing lower level maths, kind of live in here, because math is very foundational, meaning that you really have to grasp a concept before you can move to the next level. And then for those of you that are going to go into higher math levels, you're going to start moving into here. These three are the highest levels of critical thinking. And so you're really going to live in here as you start surpassing college algebra and getting into calculus and all of that mess that I personally avoided. But some of you love math, and that's a great thing, and this is where you're going to live. And this isn't just specific for math. That was just my example. You will see this in any kind of concept. All of your classes are going to start here. Again, your lower level courses are going to live in this remembering, understanding, and applying. And then as you move further in your degree and you start getting into those major courses that are specific to whatever you're going to graduate in, they're really going to push that analyzing, evaluating, and creating, because that's really, by the time you complete a degree, where we want you at. We want you to be pretty familiar with that subject, able to evaluate it, question it, and be able to see it and use it in the real world and when you get out into your career and etc.